In this video, I would like to discuss digital didactic with the help of the extensive didactic model I've presented in a different video. And because this model includes reflections on two levels, on a professional and organizational level, and on a practical and teaching level, I want to start with the professional factors that might be of interest. When teachers start teaching in digital spaces, it's quite interesting to reflect on your own attitudes about digital teaching and what perhaps your fears or hopes are about them. When we look to the conditional factors, we need to think about what kind of resources you have as a teacher to develop your practice and to create a good digital teaching practice. We know from research that teachers do need time for this, they need support from the faculty, and we also see that digital spaces create a lot of new questions that sometimes are very difficult for the teacher to answer alone. For example, how to create inclusive digital spaces for all our students, no matter the background or needs. The same goes for the normative factors, the values, the attitude basically we have towards digital competence in our course programs, in our course descriptions. So, as a faculty, we might need to think about what type of knowledge about digital technologies students need in our study program. And perhaps we have disciplinary specific knowledge about digital technologies that we need to start focusing on so that students can work as historians, physicists, nurses, and engineers. I now want to move to the first level of reflection and the intentions with using a digital resource. And the most obvious question is, why do you use this specific digital resource? Um, so, for example, here I'm using a Prezi, and it is obviously a digital presentation tool. It is easily shared, and it actually has developed into a video recording platform. And because I kind of like the outline of it, I often use Prezi because it's creative and it's quite fun to use. It does take a while to learn how to use it. So if you don't have a lot of time, Prezi might not be for you. And if you have a different type of content to present, it might be better to use a PowerPoint or some other digital presentation tool that better supports your content. And then we come to the methods. And what we know from research is that even though it is very easy nowadays to share lectures, to share digital content, what is really important is to think about what students are supposed to do with the content. And we can support students in many different ways. We can create quizzes that provide digital feedback to students. We can create a discussion forums and projects and so on and so on. And as teachers, we need to think about how we transform our content and into what form it is turned into. And here I've decided to use a video simply because I am able to show you and explain at the same time. But this forces students to sit at a screen and look at a screen. Perhaps if I had a different type of content, I could also use audio, which would give them the freedom to perhaps go out for a walk and listen to me while I talk about a phenomenon or an event. So there are different ways to transform the content to a digital content context, but you need to think about what it means for you as a teacher and also for the students. And if you want a really challenging question, then think about what works in your courses and why does it work in your courses. And then we come to the media part. And I think one of the perhaps biggest advantages of digital resources is that they can be used in many different ways. You can use a Prezi to present. Students can use a Prezi to present, but students can also use a Prezi to collaborate and create sketches or mind maps or whatever you want them to create. The same goes for Zoom. And perhaps you're used to using Zoom as a lecture platform. But the fact is, in Zoom, you have breakout rooms, you have whiteboards, you have the chat, you have a camera. So you have a lot of different tools within Zoom that you can use for different purposes. You can supervise students in big groups, small groups. Students can work in big or small groups. They can prepare presentations, they can present, they can share, and so on. And finally, I will move now to the participants and sociocultural conditions of digital teaching. What we see from research is that it is important to support students in digital spaces. And we shouldn't overestimate how much they know about studying in digital spaces. They will need help with this. I am pretty sure of that. We also need to support social relationships in the digital spaces. And if you find that students are reluctant to talk during your lectures, have you tried getting them to introduce themselves and include some kind of discussion or small talk with them as a way for them to feel comfortable and welcome in the digital space that you use? And it is often good to include student collaboration if possible, because spending a lot of time in digital spaces can create a sense of loneliness and disattachment. We also know from research that it is really important to provide clear course structures so that the students know what they're supposed to do and where they find the information, where they're supposed to hand in information. And this sounds easier than it is. I personally work a lot with my Moodle courses so that I try to eliminate as much excess information as possible each time I have a course. If you want to simplify your life and better your teaching practice, you might want to consider avoiding too many digital resources. A lot of teachers who work in online education say that less is more here. It is much better to have few digital resources that you focus on, that you learn how to use well, rather than including a lot of new digital resources. And I want to point out that in this day, it's often best to use the resources provided by your organization. This way, the student data and integrity is hopefully protected. In digital space, it's good. If you want to create an inclusive digital space, it's good to avoid long texts and videos and audios. And also avoid combining too many and conflicting modalities. So combining text with a simulation or a picture and models and so on, it can quickly become chaotic for the student.